A very good morning and welcome to today's webinar, which takes 5G's impact on maritime operations as its theme. The webinar is part of Riviera's Maritime Communications Webinar Week and will be 45 minutes in duration. Today's event is generously sponsored by ST Engineering. Now, before we get underway, I want to share with you some key information that will support you in getting the most out of today's proceedings. Please be assured we will send you the recording. Do submit your questions at any time because we do Q&A throughout the webinar. Please stay tuned into the end so you don't miss out. I guarantee that over the next 45 minutes we'll be sharing original, exclusive and insightful information of real benefit to your operations, so please do stay tuned. And at the end of the webinar we'll be sharing a link to an exit survey. Please complete it, and in turn we'll send you the presentations and recordings. Time to meet your hosts, Riviera. Riviera Maritime Media is a maritime and offshore information specialist active in 4 areas: news, events, jobs and data. To learn more, please visit the dedicated website www.rivieramm.com. Well, ladies and gents, this is me, Edwin Lampert. I'm Head of Content at Riviera Maritime Media and I'll be moderating proceedings today. And speaking of today, this is what we'll be covering: the extent to which 5G connectivity will transform maritime, port and coastal coverage, where and when, satellite's role in enabling 5G, 5G and the offshore sector, the future role of 4G LTE, and how ships will integrate 5G LTE into future communications. Here's how proceedings are going to run. Presentations will be followed by open discussions. Please do submit your questions at any time because we do Q&A throughout the webinar. At the end of the webinar, key takeaways and conclusions will be shared, and we'll also preview what's next. Well, what's next for us is meeting our panel, and we have an excellent one in place, starting off with Paul Jarkowicz. Paul is Operations Director with P&O Maritime Logistics. Following Paul is Andrew Fiola. Andrew is Head of Mobility at ST Engineering, iDirect. And completing our lineup is Gerrit Jan Kernenberg. Gerrit is responsible for strategic development at Vodafone Roaming Services. During the next 45 minutes we'll find time for a poll or two, and please do submit your questions via the webinar chat. Well, more than enough from me. Safe to say thank you very much indeed for joining. Let's now turn to the people we've come to hear from, and with that said I will turn to Paul. And Paul, as and when you're ready, sir, the floor is yours.
Good morning, Edwin. I really think we have a lot of great ground to cover, and I think the discussion for the next 45 minutes is going to be very informative for everybody. The question of the day is, to what extent will 5G connectivity transform maritime operations? The simple answer to the question is it won't. Not on its own. Only we as an industry are going to be able to transform ourselves, but 5G is definitely going to be an enabler. Communications, when paired with digitization, data analytics, these are game changers. What VSAT, 5G, and today 4G and LTE bring to us to the table for us is the ability to communicate effectively and to transmit data. We've been doing this Marconi and the telex. But times change. Today, our ships are branch offices of our businesses. The seafarers on board our ships are educated, resourceful, and we expect them to manage these branch offices efficiently and with agility. This means that we need to give them the tools with which to be successful. Crew morale and welfare tools, effective communications equipment, data analytics capability, timely business information, collaboration of information both internally and externally. All of these will help drive success. Ships are still the primary tools of our trade. Today, they are technologically advanced, high-performing platforms, and with ever-increasingly complex systems on board. The reliability of our assets needs to be maintained at high levels so that the vessel management team can deliver safe, reliable services for our clients. These systems provide us with an enormous amount of data that needs to be sifted through, analyzed, and then which helps paint us a picture of how reliable our assets are or what we need to do to maintain them. This then enables us to be proactive in how we schedule interventions, plan downtime, and act in a proactive, predictive manner towards maintenance. We start to learn insights about the equipment that we own. These insights and the corresponding data can then be shared internally and externally so that we can collaborate and learn from each other's experiences. 5G and low Earth orbit satellites will help us do this faster. But the transformation ultimately lies with us. Coverage in port and coastal areas is available today with 4G LTE. The arrival of 5G in littoral areas will only increase capability for us. At P&O Maritime Logistics, we undertook the commitment to drive our business and our decisions with data. The more we looked, the more data we found. The more data we found, the more we wanted to evaluate and analyze it and understand what it means for our business. In his recent series on 5G, Gunnar Menzel over at Capgemini said, "It's not what you know, it's when you know it." This is exactly what drove us to undertake a journey with ABS, American Bureau of Shipping, to collaborate on a revolutionary condition-based class program that minimizes surveyor attendance by using technology. 5G coverage in ports will allow us to conduct remote class surveys, upload machinery health and maintenance data, and transform the way we get credit for work completed. We've also collaborated with Baker Hughes to develop Vitalix, a system to monitor our lube oil, engine operating parameters, and vibration data. The idea of waiting a month for lube oil samples to land and be analyzed in a lab quickly became ludicrous to us. The same became the case with vibration data. Vitalix changed all that. 4G LTE allows us to transmit this data from onboard hubs while in port or at sea. With increased throughput and decreased latency, 5G will enable these transfers from Vitalix and other IoT sensors aboard our ships to happen much, much faster. But we can't stop there. Alex Holt at KPMG wrote in a recent Insights article that 4G thinking won't work in a 5G world. What this means is that 5G will open up doors and opportunities that we don't yet comprehend. If you add 5G and LEO to this equation, then we start to work in almost real time, across the globe, across all time zones, and then the possibilities become many. Broadband at sea will become a game changer. Remote operations, diagnostics, collision avoidance, vessel planning, client logistics management. All of these possibilities become reality rather than a mere daydream. 5G capability on the back of LEO satellites will forever change our strategies for communications, data collection, and subsequently its analysis. It will provide us with an office-like environment and an experience anywhere in the world, and will allow us to collaborate with our vessel management teams in real time, like never before. While we still need to plan for this new ability, we can't help but be excited. I'm also equally sure there are things IoT out there that we haven't even thought of yet. Coupled with VSAT, 4G LTE, and 5G technology, this will allow us to craft new strategies for analyzing equipment health, plan maintenance regimes, and enhance crew morale and welfare, the lifeblood of our businesses. Ultimately, this will help us be smarter in managing our assets in an ever increasingly competitive and real-time environment. I really want to thank all of you for your time today. All of us on this call are truly excited to see what each of you does with this exciting new technology. Thank you, Edwin. Back over to you.
Thank you very much indeed, Paul. Great presentation, which has stimulated a number of questions. Ladies and gents, please do keep those questions coming. Next up, of course, it is Gerrit. So Gerrit, I will ready your presentation. And as and when you're ready, sir, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Edwin. Good morning, good evening to all of you. And thanks, Paul, for sharing your insights. My name is Gerrit-Jan Konijnenberg. It's a Dutch name, but I'm working and living in Luxembourg and responsible for strategic development of Vodafone roaming services. So over the next 5 minutes, I'll give you a little bit of our insight on what we think the 5G impact will be on maritime. But let's first take a look at where we are today. So today, most coastal waters of largest trade routes are under Vodafone coverage. With courtesy of Spire satellites, also based in Luxembourg. You see here the coastal routes, and at the moment already we cover with 4G about 93% of global coastlines. And if you add 3G and 3G plus, it's almost 99, almost 100%. We do that in our Vodafone operational countries and in the partner market countries, which in totally we cover about 67 countries globally. So we bring this communication to the maritime sector via business partners, sales partners, companies globally like NSSL or Speedcast, Telenor Maritime, and regional players like Pronautos. They resell our connectivity. And for us, monitoring the quality of communications is very important. We do that centralized globally. Proactive testing of all the connectivity we have global in all those countries. We do that via retail monitoring for our own 700 million customers. And that could be normal private users, business users, connected IoT devices, and more connected chips. So talking now a little bit more about chips, we really support the digitalization of the maritime ecosystem. Last year, we commissioned a large global survey together with Future Nautics, which showed us that ships spend about 18 days per month, which is about 60%, in reach of 4G, so near shore or in the port. So which means that 4G can enable non-time critical data offload. So we truly believe in hybrid connectivity. Means that satellite we think is best for, of course, the deep sea and time critical data information and transmissions. But mobile is, of course, great for the coastal waters and in the port, larger volumes at a lower cost point, of course, helping also the crew communications and welfare. So that itself is where we are today in the transition from 4G now to 5G. So what's the difference? The difference is about speed and latency, and ideally, of course, also in a more cost-efficient way. So what's the difference as we see it? 4G speed is about 200 to 300 megabit per second, but by 5G is already 1 to 10 gigabits per second, which is downloading a full movie in just a few seconds. And about latency, we go down from about 300 milliseconds down to 3 milliseconds. And that is, I think, what Paul was referring to also. It's like a real-time global network. Yeah, so lower latency at a higher speed. So that is ideally, of course, for us as network providers. 5G is way more cost efficient, about 10 times more cost efficient than 4G. And of course, we also pass that efficiency on to our subscribers. And of course, that will also benefit the maritime sector. So if we look at the uptake today, it goes very fast. By the end of this year, we expect about 190 million 5G subscriptions, reaching about 2.8 billion in 5 years' time. And that will be a true global coverage of about 65%. Yeah? We also expect a way smoother transmission and a smoother evolution from 4G to 5G, simply because most of the IoT devices, and at the moment we connect already about 100 million IoT devices, they are already capable of using 5G bands. So that is going to be a fast transition. But Our investments not only are stopping at the terrestrial networks, we also invest in AST and science. And that is going to be a space-based network called Space Mobile. It will consist of a LEO satellite network, and therefore you could connect even with your smartphone directly to the satellite. So we are going to extend mobile coverage to more people and more devices across the planet. And we think therefore that the transition you see from 4G will have an impact on 5G. The question is when. Yeah, so the indicative timing I would like to share here with you on this webinar is that in the short term, we'll cover about 10 Vodafone countries and roaming partners of us in Asia. In the next 1 to 2 years, it will be most of our Vodafone 19 countries and our partner markets. So then we go to, let's say, the 60 countries worldwide, plus our roaming partners. And I've been responsible for the rollout of the 4G testing globally. And we have been building a lot of experience in roaming rollout. So we expect that also to have roaming coverage of 5G over the next years. And what about hybrid? I think about 3 years from now, but that's a question mark. We don't know really for sure. It's all technical development, and it is a bit rocket science, but we expect that there will be 5G hybrid terrestrial satellite coverage, let's say, as of 3 years from now. So that is concluding my quick introduction on the impact on 5G, and back to you, Edwin.
Thank you very much indeed, Gerrit. Great job, which also has stimulated a number of questions. Ladies and gentlemen, do keep those questions coming. More immediately, I invite Andrew to come in and present. So ladies and gentlemen, please warmly welcome Andrew. Andrew, the floor is yours.
Great. Thank you very much, Edwin, and welcome to all of the participants and attendees. So yes, I'm going to talk a little bit about how we see our vision for 5G in the future, and I'll start by sharing a slide that has a number of logos on it. That's not usually the way I lead into a presentation, but for this audience and for people not familiar with ST engineering, I thought it made sense to introduce, or in some cases, reintroduce us. So we make the iDirect and NewTek VSAT technology that's both on board and on shore, and that's what's really enabling the communications over satellite. So there's a very good chance that one of these trusted partners of ours is providing connectivity to your vessels. We're in the midst of one of the most dynamic periods of innovation in the satellite industry, with the technology in space and on the ground developing really very rapidly. We see the introduction of 5G as an incredible opportunity to leverage the many benefits of satellite in the overall telecommunications infrastructure. So I'll talk a little bit more about what we mean by that. So satellite service providers do an excellent job today stitching together different networks. But in the future, they're going to be able to offer a much wider range of services within a 5G environment. To successfully deploy the full 5G potential, satellite really is required to maximize coverage, to optimize network performance, and also to improve the user experience. In maritime, this is especially acute, where satellite is most often the primary access network for a vessel. So to be clear, for us, 5G is not just the next G, but 5G is intended to be a real network of networks with standards that are developed to integrate across different access networks. So whether it's cellular or satellite or Wi-Fi or WiMAX, or others, it will create 5G enables the creation of a seamless operating environment. We see the benefits of hybrid connectivity, both near shore and also at sea. leading to great improvements in operational efficiency, and we've heard a little bit about that already, quality of experience for crew and for passengers, and situational awareness. The adoption of standards is also going to bring down the costs of equipment and service in what's traditionally been a pretty expensive niche. So through standardization, 5G is really going to enable mainstream integration of satellite and other non-terrestrial networks into terrestrial networks, where previously they've been more complicated to integrate, highly customized, and therefore more expensive. The proliferation of new satellite technologies, such as software-defined satellites, new low Earth orbit constellations, and HAPS, high-altitude platforms, is going to increase choice, access options, available bandwidth, right? And that's going to help make the economics in our part of the industry much more competitive. The merger of satellite, mobile cellular, fixed broadband, local area networks into one converged solution will offer faster speeds, greater capacity, massive scalability, low latency, and higher reliability. So this will create a seamless environment with vastly improved quality of experience. So you'll really have the sort of maximum bandwidth available for the particular applications you're running at the time that you need it in that kind of environment. The telecom industry as a whole is building on technologies such as network programmability, function virtualization, and service orchestration. Through satellite 5G, satellite providers will be able to exchange inflexible hardware-based networks for reconfigurable software-based networks. So on the left side of this table, we talk about some of the foundational principles for service providers in 5G. So software-defined networking, network function virtualization, service orchestration, and evolved packet core. But what does that really mean for a maritime business itself? And it really is all about bringing that improved performance, a simplified network operating environment that can be reconfigured, operations in the cloud, really tying remote sites together, and having edge compute for higher performance. So the 5G standard is designed to virtualize, automate, and streamline service delivery. We're transforming our technology at ST Engineering to align with 5G standards. And that standards-based access is really the path to fully converged end-to-end networks. So to wrap up, our connected vessel strategy really envisions 5G at its core, right? We're fostering collaboration and standards through industry bodies such as the 3GPP. We're driving innovations in trials like we are doing with the European Space Agency. And we are building 5G architecture directly into our platform. So to sum up, we believe that driving the new 5G standards for satellite networks, and as a result, we're building on the principles of evolved packet core, multi-waveforms, edge computing, and cloud-based architecture into our platform so that it's no longer a separate standalone network. At the end of the day, we're really going to become a standard radio interface with multi-radio network architecture in 5G, right? And we'll be tying that all together. So thank you for that, and back to you, Edwin.
So ladies and gentlemen, on your screen you can see the poll question we've immediately brought up. Are you considering satellite plus 4G, 5G hybrid solutions for your vessel? It's a binary, either you are or you aren't. Do register your vote, do take part. We will be sharing the results of all of the polls that we do in an article after the webinar, but what I can share with you at this point in time is about 42% are indicating that the answer is yes for them. They are considering the 4G, 5G hybrid solutions for their vessels. Let's do another poll, and then I promise we will come to the all-important Q&A, so do stand by. So poll question number 2, here it goes. So to what extent, ladies and gentlemen, will 4G, 5G bring your total communication costs down and help optimize your bandwidth? So we're asking you to respond on a sliding scale, percentage terms. Maybe it won't. Maybe it's up to 10%, 10 to 25%, 25 to 50%, 50 to 75%, or 75 to 100%. The results are coming in thick and fast. Please do take part. We would like a representative sample. As you know, we do report the full results in an article after the webinar. Fairly even spread, I'm seeing here. The lead result at the moment, and this may concern our panelists, be interested to hear their perspectives, but actually the majority, it's a slim majority, but a majority nonetheless, are saying 0%. Make of that what you will. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I've mentioned the panelists, so it's high time we came to them. So here are our questions. So let's get going with those. So here's the first one, ladies and gents. Quite a specific one. How does 5G assist with collision avoidance? Who would like to get us underway with that one?
So if my colleagues don't mind, I'll jump in on that one and kind of kick off the conversation. 5G, and again, the 5G standard across LEOs and VSAT will actually increase or decrease the latency and increase the throughput of information coming off the ship to remote sensing operations. In our particular instance, that would be an operations center where a lot of our navigational data is displayed. Again, it's just one added layer to a human factor backup, meaning that when we see something happening on the navigational bridge of one of our ships, or we see some problem with a system, we can actually alert the crew on board to go ahead and take action and to just make sure that we're there for backup. So that's the short answer. The longer answer is that when we start moving towards automation on autonomy, that reduced latency and that almost real-time experience allows us to get the data off the ship, and whatever sensors that we have on the ship, we'll be able to see almost in real time back ashore as well. So again, it's a backup to the actual watchkeeper on board the ship, and just one added layer of prevention. That's it.
Thank you. Gerrit, Andrew, anything to add to that?
I find it difficult to say when we talk about less latency. Of course, we're talking about milliseconds, and recently on LinkedIn, you saw some very nice collision videos of ships in channels or whatever, or even at open sea. And it is striking that you see things happening so long before it's going to happen. So I'm not sure whether I'm going to say that 5G is going to reduce collisions. I mean, it's not about milliseconds. That is rather about minutes. So yeah, I'm a bit hesitant on that. But Andrew, what's your view on that?
Yeah, well, I think, I mean, I think a lot of the 5G discussion comes back to this talk about latency, but for me, it's more about actually network architecture and what you're able to do in an environment where standardization across multiple radio access networks. I think Paul mentioned part of it there. The idea that, you know, if you have edge compute on board your vessel, you can start to do more things on board the vessel and then replicate back on shore, and really be able to pull some insights on board and share on shore to make decision making quicker. But, you know, in an environment where it's not necessarily autonomous vessels, but where there might be more automation, it's about putting tools to make decision making in the hands of the people that need to make it, and that's still going to be folks on board the vessel with a lot, you know, with assistance from their shore-based counterparts.
Thank you. I'd like to amplify on the question of latency, gents. How will 5G latency be lower if processing is being done in the cloud? Who can get us started on that one? Gerrit, please come in. And then Andrew. Gerrit, then Andrew.
Yeah, latency. It is amazing how things get faster. That's the first thing. On the other side, there's still networks connecting it, let's say, in the cloud. Where is the cloud? And where's your cloud hosted solution? If you are running a fleet, your cloud host solution can be Americas, but it also could be in Singapore. So then you also have latency depending on what communications you use then for the backhauling to your cloud, to your server farm. So and then again, it's the responsiveness of the farm itself. So how fast are your machines, and how up to date is your software running your application? So it's a very complex question. And Andrew, I saw that in one of your slides you had, let's say, the cloud hosted mentioned. Um, yeah, what's your view on this?
Yeah, well, thanks, Garrett. I completely agree with you. I think, one of the things that we have to keep in mind is that, different applications require different types of performance. And one of the things that 5G enables is network slicing, where you can actually assign different types of quality of service for different applications that you are running. And then at the end of the day, like you say, it's the back end architecture that is also, as much as anything, going to impact that overall performance. Do you need to have extremely low latency for certain applications? In which case, you might want to do that at the edge, whereas other less time sensitive things can be done in the cloud or on a non-real-time basis, et cetera. I think what 5G does is it opens up the ability to orchestrate all that in a way that's going to improve the overall experience and optimize the way the network functions.
Paul, I see you sort of nodding in assent there. Anything to add from your side?
No, I wholeheartedly agree with both the gentlemen. I think it's a perfect example of a Vitalik system that we have on board with Baker Hughes. There's a lot of edge computing going on board the ship, where we're actually taking the relevant information that we need to know right now. Meaning, do we have a low oil pressure? Do we have water intrusion in the oil sump? Do we have an issue happening on board with one of our pieces of equipment right now? The historical data, as far as temperatures, lube oil pressures over time, et cetera, things that we can actually move to the cloud, take a look at it in real time in an analytics platform. Those things we can wait for. The vibration data over time, taking a look at the changes historically over time. All of those slices can be taken ashore into the cloud and then taken a look at. The things that we need to be aware of now, simple things like navigational data and navigational alerts coming from the ARPA or the AIS. These are the things that we want to know about now. And doing that computing on board ship, having that information available not only to the team on board, but also the team ashore immediately or almost immediately is the critical thing. And I think that's where the combination of edge computing on board makes a big difference.
Paul, you mentioned the critical thing. A lot of people in our audience are interested in the critical issue of safety. A question that neatly summarizes the number of questions we've got on the topic is displayed. How best can safety considerations be improved with 5G? We're talking EPIRB, SRT communication. Could you perhaps kick us off on your views on this all-important question, then we'll broaden out to your co-panelists.
Happy to. We heard yesterday from a couple of our colleagues from Iridium about advances in technology and how the new world of GMDSS is evolving and using satellite communications to go ahead and achieve that. The safety data that you can get that's automatic, the safety data that you have to get by verbal communications with somebody, again, having the voice capability to do that, having the information systems coming off of the ship telling you what's happening. And as the ships have become much more technologically advanced, it's usually not just one thing that's happening at the same time. It's a multitude of things happening at the same time. Being able to get that data off the ship for stability or damage assessments, whatever the case may be, being able to go ahead and have a team looking at that ashore at the same time while you're dealing with the problem on board makes a big world of difference. That can make the difference between saving the ship, making a rescue possible, or at the end of the day, a matter of life and death. And I think the more information that we can actually bring off the ship in real time, much more capability will be brought to keeping a safe operation, or adding another layer to being able to respond to a critical situation.
Thank you, Paul. I'd like to add another layer to the question and have you respond to that, and then we will come to your colleagues. Another layer of safety is understanding the liability issues and the legal implications of providing a safety critical element. Could you speak to those two areas, and then we'll come to Gerrit and Andrew. Do come in, Paul.
No, I think when you start looking at liabilities, being able to monitor things and being able to go ahead and do forensics on that, whether it's CCTV footage coming off the ship, whether it's navigational data, all of these things, while it's nice to be able to go ahead and have it in the VDR up on the overhead of the bridge, the VDRs of 20 years ago don't hold the amount of information that we definitely would need to be able to assess a situation and a forensic analysis at the end of a situation or incident. So I think from that perspective, again, being able to take that information, being able to store it, being able to analyze it, being able to use it, makes a big difference when it starts, again, coming down to a liability issue. I think it also gives you a leg up to be able to take a look at it when you need to.
Thank you. Gerrit, the question of safety, over to you.
Yeah, safety and security is extremely interesting. What we see is that if you look at the air interface, 2G, 3G, using the SS7 signaling, which was quite vulnerable for attacks, then you can say that moving 4G to 5G, and with reference also to the network slicing, we are able to provide a more secure network infrastructure for the maritime ecosystem. Which means that by using network slicing, we can also have even a dedicated bandwidth with a secure, let's say, kind of a VPN over the air connectivity, which means that not necessarily the ship operator is owning the vessel. So legally, you can argue that the one who is maybe renting out the vessel should take care of the best possible and secure communications between the ship and the shore. Yeah. So, but this is up to the ecosystem how 5G will help to further secure. But from our point of view, we think that with the new signaling interfaces and the network slicing technology, things get more secure, and that is how I think 5G will help.
Thank you. Do come in, Andrew.
Yeah, thank you. And I think from our side, we build security into our part of the network from the ground up, encryption built in from the ground up. So it's one more layer of security from that aspect. Of course, I always go back to the point that the sort of first tenet of having a secure system is making sure that people are trained on how to use it. Not bringing on board media that they might connect into the network that has viruses on it or things like that. So that always comes down to the people in my view. But from that safety aspect of it as well, I've certainly seen firsthand, in fact, that from a liability or insurance standpoint, if you're able to move from things like schedule-based maintenance regimes to condition-based monitoring or even predictive maintenance, right? Insurance companies will treat that more kindly if you can demonstrate that you've got a system in place that enables you to take those proactive kinds of steps, because that's then limiting liability if you can have that kind of regime in place.
Thank you. Responding to one of our poll questions, one of our panelists has said, one of our attendees rather, has said 5G will not reduce total costs as there will be more need for bandwidth. Gerrit, your views, good sir, and then Andrew and Paul, welcome to come in. Come in, Gerrit.
Yeah, this is a wonderful thing. So remember when we started with a GPRS 20 years ago? Yeah, I think we paid for a megabyte about $10 or €10, whatever. And today the communication costs are 1,000-fold cheaper, and the usage also 1,000-fold increased. So we see the cost going down and usage going up. So maybe the total communication spend might stay the same. However, this will contribute to more efficiency, to better crew communications, to even entertainment on board, whatever. So I think it's up to the user to limit the cost of communications or to increase the volumes. So that's not up to us.
Let me layer on another aspect of cost. Gerrit, if you respond to this as well, and then we'll broaden out. Will Space 5G drive the traditional GEO VSAT costs down, or will it become a solution for the chosen few?
That's a very interesting question. We are a customer of satellite providers, but what we see, and these are, let's say, the main four satellite providers, we see that the cost is coming down. But also we see that there's going to be an increased competition in the satellite area with more players on the LEO sphere and MEO. So I think that we'll see that the total cost of satellite communication will go down, but we are not a VSAT reseller. Yeah, so I'm very curious what my co-panelists think about this. But in the end, it is a demand supply, like in every market, and I think the demand will go up, but also there's a huge increase of supply. So I think the price will go down.
Andrew, your views on the all-important topic of cost?
Yes, so I think Gerrit's first example was a very good and appropriate one, right? As demand for more data and throughput increases, we've also seen technology improve and innovation that's helped drive down the overall cost per megabyte delivered or gigabyte delivered. But I try to look at this as a holistic whole, in fact, and look at the value that connectivity can bring to a user, right? And whether it's the crew satisfaction that one can get because they can now FaceTime their loved ones and they couldn't do that before, or that you can now implement a new software package. I'm sure Paul can probably talk a lot about this, where you can now sort of reduce your bunkering costs by 5% per month or what have you. Looking at, okay, what is my monthly bill for connectivity on board this vessel, 5G or not 5G, I think becomes less relevant if you can demonstrate what sort of value you're able to wring out of that connectivity.
Thank you, Paul. You've been mentioned by name, and obviously you stand to pay for this. So, what's your take?
Again, I know that Chris Vedat, who many of you know, our head of IT, has a distinct view on how we should shape things up and how we should have bandwidth allocated for certain things. I think one of the things in this pandemic, actually, that was clearly demonstrated was that when we became aware that there was going to be instances where crew change was going to be inhibited and that we were going to be going into lockdowns and longer terms of work, these are the kind of things that became very important for us to make sure that our crew had that connectivity. So we were able to reallocate bandwidth in our current VSAT systems to go ahead and make sure that we did that. We increased bandwidth. We allocated more bandwidth for it, just to make sure that the guys were able to go ahead and have that chat with their families back home to say goodnight or just stay connected. I think that becomes ever increasingly more important as we go forward. It's the creature comforts of home that we're going to need to make sure that we provide to some extent, whether it's a wind turbine technician or whether it's the chief mate on one of our ships. We need to be able to keep the people connected to keep them interested in continuing to go to sea. That's one thing. The price portion of it, I think we've seen, as Harriet and Andrew have already mentioned, I think we've seen a step change in how prices have improved over the years. I still remember making phone calls from the tip of the Antarctic at $10 a minute back in the day. Those days have now gone. So I think we'll see continued improvement. I also think that VSAT, 5G, 4G, LTE will continue to play a significant role in our communications packages. But I think it becomes an ever increasingly more important part of our day-to-day life in the marine community, is making sure that we keep people connected and we also stay connected with our data.
Thank you. Still to come, another poll and the key conclusions of our panelists, but a couple of critical questions that I would like to squeeze in. Here's the first of those. Should IMO and IALA not get more interested in 5G with respect to standardization and the future of VDES? I'm going to start with you, Paul, and then invite the others to come in. Do come in, Paul.
No, I think that becomes a very good question. If you remember from the webinar yesterday, that was an interesting question that was posed as well. Is IALA, our IMO, are they keeping pace with the times of technology? I think yes. We need to make sure that we have a unified standard. We need to make sure that we have rules and regulations in place to manage all of this with. But I also believe that the regulatory bodies need to get with the times, so to speak. I do believe that they need to get a little bit more agile in the way that they look at technology and the way they respond to it, because in some instances, I believe we're not where we should be with that technology. But I'm definitely interested in hearing what Harriet and Andrew have to say on the subject.
Thank you. Harriet, do come in.
Yes, well, I think today's technology is developing so fast, so it is very difficult for different industry bodies to keep up to speed. And let's not forget, we have the global GSMA, we have the ITU, and I think by becoming an active member, I think there the interest of the industry can be safeguarded. So that would be my take to it, because you should not try to repeat what other industry bodies are doing already. And but it's important. We talked about security, IT connectivity, standardization of modems. There's so much to it. So I do think that active membership of the ITU, for example, could help to drive the industry standards.
Thank you. Do come in, Andrew, please.
Yeah, I think I'd agree exactly with Harriet there. This kind of standardization around 5G and that kind of thing, is probably, no pun intended, but outside the IMO's wheelhouse, right? And there are many other standards bodies that are focused on exactly this kind of thing, right? So it may well be most beneficial for not to be isolated from it, but to have a seat at the table where there's other organizations like Harriet mentioned, like the GSMA or the ITU, where the IMO or the IALA can adopt from those guys.
Thank you. Here's a question that's very much of the moment, capturing the zeitgeist, if you will. What could be the threats for an EU country to implement 5G from a Chinese service provider? Gerrit.
I rather want Angela Merkel to comment on this one. I'm not in politics, and I really have to refer here to the corporate, let's say, communications we have. We do work with all the Chinese operators. And I think a Chinese service provider, if it depends what is meant here really as a service provider. Is that a network connectivity provider? Is that an engineering company? What kind of service provider is it? Or are we talking about the hardware discussions which the EU has at the moment? So I think the question is a bit too broad, I think, to answer on this one. But yeah.
Andrew, can you narrow the focus? Do come in.
Well, I think I have sort of the same questions Gerrit had. Aside from the fact that this is sort of the third rail question that we probably none of us want to touch, but yeah, I mean, a Chinese service provider could mean anything from a vendor to an actual service provider, and I think it's not for us to determine what the threats could be. Everybody has to sort of do their own due diligence on that, whatever that may be, from them and others. Right. At the end of the day, you want to make sure you have a secure service. You have a service that performs well for your needs, that's economical, and is delivering the value that you expect to get out of it.
Paul, at the end of the day, you want a secure service that delivers what it needs and is economical. So how would you treat this question?
Exactly the way that Gerrit and Andrew just did. I think I subscribe to both of their views on this. But ultimately, at the end of the day, cybersecurity, security of your data is your responsibility. And I think it's how you manage your systems and how you manage your data and how you secure your communications is up to you. Ultimately, I was just going to add, ultimately, at the end of the day, all of this is transmitted over networks globally that's owned by many, many, many different countries and companies. So I think we have to keep in mind the broader view of things, but I'll leave it at that, Edward.
Thank you. Speaking of the broader view, let us squeeze in one more poll question. Then I will come to our panelists in the order they presented for their key conclusions and takeaways. So, gentlemen, please prepare your thoughts. Ladies and gentlemen, here is your poll question. Are you considering satellite 4G and 5G hybrid solutions for your vessel? Having heard what we've had to say here, 10 more seconds on that. And in fact, I think I can squeeze in one more poll question just to buy our panelists a little extra time. So here is the final poll that I'll put your way this morning. Select what you see as the most important benefit 4G, 5G can bring. So you have a range of options there: reduced communication costs, faster speeds near shore, reliable connection near shore, or backup for satellite. You'll all have a view on that one. Please do register it. We'll just take another 10 seconds. Please do get involved. It is anonymous. We're just seeking to get a representative view from industry on what it sees as the most important benefit that 4G, 5G can bring. 6 more seconds. If you haven't voted, nothing to lose. Not identified. Don't worry on those scores. Just lodge your vote. Excellent. What I can tell you, ladies and gents, is that the results will appear in that article after the webinar, but the lead category as we speak is faster speeds near shore. Make of that what you will. That's the lead as I close out the poll. At this point in proceedings, ladies and gentlemen, we now come to our panelists in the order that they presented and invite them to share their key conclusions and takeaways. So with that said, Paul, you're up first, please.
Thanks, Edwin. Really great conversations today. And I think the key things for me even to take away from the webinar today is probably 3 really important questions and some subsets to that. Yeah. How connected are you? And, and again, taking that into consideration, if you're not that connected, what do you need to change? I think this is one of the things that we all need to take a look at and see with everything that we have going on board our ships today. Are we as connected as we should be? The other thing that comes to me is, what data are you gathering? Yes, there's a lot of data to be gathered, but is it Is it something that makes sense for your operation? And then what are you going to do with it? That would be the follow-on to that. And then the last one is, what are you going to do differently tomorrow? What's the first thing that you're going to change tomorrow? Taking into context everything that we discussed today, what is it that you will change within your operation? The same thing that I'm going to do when I sit down with the guys in the morning to review this. So I think those are my 3 key takeaways, Edwin.
Thank you very much indeed. Garrett, please can we hear from you?
Yes, I think we have seen a lot of discussions on the 5G impact on cost and speed, but I think from my side, the key takeaways is that hybrid communications in 4G is here already globally, and 5G is there to grow and to grow fast. The benefit for the maritime sector will be mainly, of course, in faster download speeds and a very low latency, but also in the possibility to have enhanced security. So this is how we bring, I think, better solutions to the maritime sector together with our maritime communication partners, our MCPs globally. And I think that will benefit the maritime sector a lot over the next years to come.
Thank you, Garrett. Andrew, we welcome your views.
Yes, thanks, Edwin. I'd say from my side that connectivity, from my standpoint, it's really a tool for business success. And what we're seeing is that the take-up of this is really down to the user itself and their initiatives. And we've heard quite a lot about those initiatives that are taking place today that are really leading to reduced costs, more efficient operations, et cetera. But unless you take advantage of those tools or those applications that connectivity enables, then you're not going to see those kinds of results. And finally, the addition of 5G is actually going to let us all sort of look at the way we organize networks in a totally different way than we've been able to today. And everything from billing, prioritization, et cetera, will really bring a new level of let's say, flexibility and capability to that connectivity. So it's something we're looking very forward to.
Thank you very much indeed, Paul, Garrett, and Andrew, for a stimulating webinar. A lot of ground covered, and I know that those questions that we didn't get to, we will be returning to the audience in writing within a week of transmission. But once again, a huge thanks for being so generous with your time and your insights. In terms of what next, we have an entirely new themed webinar week next week, where we'll be looking at maritime hybrid, electric and fuel cells. The first webinar in the series is the business case for hybrid and electric technology in North America, and we'll be kicking off at 7 p.m. British summer time. To keep abreast of Riviera's evolving webinar program, please visit the dedicated website www.rivierammm.com/webinars. Riviera, for its part, will continue to serve the information that matters to you through our weekly newsletter, our magazines, curated content that matches your interest, and of course through relevant events such as this. The important thing, ladies and gents, is you don't miss out. In order to ensure you do not miss out, please visit our homepage and register. The process takes a minute or two, and once you've registered, you ensure that you are permanently in the loop on developments in your area of the business. Well, more than enough from me. Safe to say a huge thank you to our panelists, a huge thank you to you, our audience, for joining from near and far. Please do complete that exit survey. As you know, in return, we'll send you those presentations and recordings. And of course, a very, very big thank you to our sponsors, ST Engineering. Ladies and gentlemen, wherever you happen to be in the world, please stay safe, stay well. And for now, until we next speak, good morning, good afternoon, or indeed, good evening.